Alright, this is Harry Potter Wrapped, Chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. It's like Harry Potter, but I'm gonna wrap it, you'll see. Listen. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley, number 4, Privet Drive, were proud to be normal. Nothing strange would arise underneath their noses, though it would be hard to see, cause Dursley was so beefy he could hardly see his feet. They lived together too with their spoiled son Dudley. Petunia stayed at home while Vernon he sold drills for grunnings. They loved their little lives and would do anything to keep it. Don't think they could survive if anyone found out their secret. See, Toonie had a sister, ever so strange. She married that deadbeat, Potter was his name. They even had a son, Harry, what a brat. Their precious little Dudley never interact with that. And so our story starts on a dull grey Tuesday. Unbeknownst to the Dursleys, this was furthest from a doomsday. Vernon hummed the tune, he picked out his favorite tie. Petunia wrestled Dudley into his chair so high. 8:30, Mr. Dursley grabbed his briefcase, kissed his wife goodbye. Hurry up, can't be late. He waved to his daughters as he stepped a foot outside, and what he saw on the street, he could not believe his eyes. It was a cat. Not scratching posts or chasing rats. On the corner it was sat and it was reading a map. Dursley blinked, looked at it as it stared back, but there was no map in sight. He must have imagined that. Dursley shook it off and went to start his car. Pedal to the metal, from that cat he would be far. But strange things continued as he drove on, no joke, for when he looked outside he saw men dressed in cloaks, not young men, all grow in. What was this fashion? Mr. Dursley was enraged, but then he rationed, they must be dressed weird cause they're collecting for a front. Vernon Dursley jeered, he had discovered their stunt. He pulled up to his office, his mind back on drills. Owl after owl swooped past his windowsill, oblivious, for unlike his wife, he was no lurker, too busy making calls and shouting at co-workers. He continued this way till it was time for his lunch. He went over to a baker's, buy a bun, then a punch to his gut as he heard a cloaked man say something scary. Did that man just say Potter? He swears that man just said Harry, so he stopped dead. Fear flooded him full, he almost opened his mouth, but thought no, impossible. Harry was a common name, Potter ain't so rare, come to think of it, wasn't his name Harvey or Hare? Rolled, he thought no point in worrying his wife. When it came to his sister, anger not present but rife. So we went back to work, tried to focus on drills, but kept thinking about what he heard, body shaking, filled with chills. Finally, 5 o'clock rolled around, but when Dursley slung the door, a man hit the ground. Sorry, said Dursley. He must have been distracted. Then the man looked up and smiled. Dursley wished he could retract it. As the man stood up, Dursley saw his cloak violet. In a squeaky voice he said, "Don't worry, I won't riot. Nothing could upset me. You know who is gone at last." Then he reached out his arms, hugged Dursley, then walked past. Vernon just stared, rooted to the spot. He could not have just been hugged by a stranger. He could not. He hopped back in his car and thought, what's going on? That's when he pulled into his drive and saw the cat on the lawn. Shoo! Dursley shouted with rage, but the cat didn't move, just looked up and met his gaze. Is this normal cat behavior? Mr. Dursley wondered, but he shook that thought away. Didn't want to thunder through the door and make more of his family worried, so he bit his tongue. Sat down and heard the stories of what his wife had done while he was out today, till it was fine for Dudley to go to his crib and lay. Vernon sat down, flicked the TV to the news. That's when he found out he ain't the only one clueless to what's happening. Owls flying near and far, and instead of the rain, the town got shooting stars. That's it, Vernon thought. I have to ask her. He turned to his wife and said, Toonie, have you heard from your sister as of late? And he knew that he messed up. No, she answered sharply. Why would you ask the stuff? Funny stuff on the news. Owls shooting stars. So, snapped Mrs. Dursley, I thought maybe it was her lot. Petunia sipped her tea through her lips pursed tight. Vernon continued carefully, didn't want to fight. Don't they have a son about Dudley's age? Yes, they call him Harry. What a horrible name. Mr. Dursley knew then he heard his nephew's name today. When he tried to sleep that night, he couldn't, too much on his brain. Ooh-wee. That's when it happened out of nowhere. A flash, then a man who appeared on the land Privet Drive would call a scam. A long silver beard, a grand purple cloak, and on his ancient crooked nose half-moon spectacles. He reached into his pocket, and much to one's surprise, he pulled out a lighter, held it high in the sky. 12 times he clicked it, and 12 lights went out. If anyone looked out their windows, all they would see is black now. Fancy meeting you here, he said to no one, for the only being around was that cat from the lawn. But this particular feline wasn't normal, full it twisted and it turned into a woman standing tall. She had a glare to her, not mean, but quite severe. She seemed rather uptight, bun-tied in a perfect sphere. She looked at the man. How did you know it was me? The man looked back for a second, then responded with glee. My dear Professor McGonagall, I have never seen a cat sit more stiffly on a wall. You'd be stiff too if you had been there all day. All day? When you could have been out, celebrating? I have seen at least 12 parties on the way. McGonagall stared, then sniffed angrily. Oh yes, everyone's celebrating all right. They should be much more careful, not out risking Muggle sight. You can't blame them, the man said gently. We've had little to celebrate for the last 10th of a century. I know that, she answered irritably, but they can't be out doing magic Muggles can see. A fine thing it would be if on the very day you know who disappears that the Muggles find their way. Is he really gone, Dumbledore? You gotta know. Though he seemed wary, he responded, certainly seems so. And though it sounds scary, my dear, I must insist, you call him by his real name, Voldemort that git. I really see no reason to be frightened of his names. That's cause you're the only one he fears your power and your fame. You flatter me. He has powers I have not. That's cause you're too noble to use him. In a cell you rather rot. He was blushing, though through the dark she couldn't tell. Have you heard all the rumors? There's one that prevails, that when he turned up in Godric's Hollow for the Potters, he found them, and now James and Lily are goners. Dumbledore bowed his head. McGonagall gasped. Her whole body trembled. The grief wouldn't pass. They're saying as well, she continued with sadness, that when he tried to kill their son, he couldn't. It was madness. No one knows why or how, but when he cast a spell he choked, he tried to kill Harry Potter, but then his powers broke. He couldn't kill a child after all that he's done. He laid out the Potters, but he couldn't kill their son. She pulled out her handkerchief, dabbed a wet splosh. Dumbledore sniffed, then gazed down to his watch. Hagrid's late, he spoke. Oh, and by the way, was it he who said I'd be here? Yes, and what a fate! To leave poor little Harry with these people, they're the worst. They're the only family's got. I wrote a letter, they should nurse him as one of their own. McGonagall groaned. I've been watching. If he grows up here, he'll surely be owned. The boy will be famous. Dumbledore said, best to grow up in shelter, lest it goes to his head. Very well then, let me ask, do you really think it is wise to trust Hagrid? You know he likes a drink. I'm not saying his heart's not in a place that isn't right. Let me stop you right there. I trust Hagrid with my life. As though on cue, as if he heard them speak, a motorcycle flew close and then landed on the street. Atop it was a man 5 times as wide as most, twice as tall, bushy hair, and a beard fell past his throat. Hands the size of lids of dustbin, feet in leather boots, which resembled the dolphin, but always kept him en route. He stretched out his arms, which held a bundle of blankets. Dumbledore looked charmed. He spoke softly and said, Hagrid, at last, and where did you get that motorbike? Young Sirius Black lent it to me this sad night. I got him, sir, but the house was destroyed. I got Harry Potter before the Muggles were deployed. McGonagall and Dumbledore looked down in Hagrid's arms. There laid Harry, jet black hair and lightning scar. Can't you do something about that mark you left? I can't, and if I could, I wouldn't try my best. You see, scars can be useful. I have one myself, on my knee, and it's the perfect map of London underground. He took the young boy, turned towards the Dursleys' home. That's when Hagrid stopped him. Can I say bye before he goes? He bent his great shaggy head, tears fell down his cheek in bliss. Then he gave Harry a wet, sloppy kiss. He let out a howl that sounded like a wounded dog. Shh, said McGonagall, you'll make the mubbles with your snogs. Sorry, said Hagrid and put his face in his arm, but I can't stand the thought of Lily and James gone. Yes, I know, it's so sad, and she patted his back, but that doesn't mean around the muggles we can just slack. While they were talking, Dumbledore went to the garden, Harry in his arms. To the doorstep he was walking. He lay him down there, tucked a note in his crib. The 3 of them stared, none of them could bear to dip. Well, that's that then. I suppose it's time we go. He took a step back. Hagrid had to blow his nose. One by one, they all took their leave. Hagrid on the motorbike, McGonagall gone with the breeze. As they left, Dumbledore took a back seat, clicked his letter 12 times, and a light filled up the street. Good luck, Harry, before he left, he murmured. Then he twisted his feet, but disappeared before he turned. There laid Harry, sleeping peacefully, not knowing soon he would be woken by Petunia's scream. And all around the country, people toasted to this kid. They raised glasses to Harry Potter, the boy who lived. Boom.